Hey everyone, I'm Monica Clavijo, and welcome back to another episode of the Bear Experiment podcast. Today I'm sitting with a powerhouse of spiritual wisdom and raw authenticity, Ingrid H. Turner. She's a mystic, a medium, poet, speaker, and founder of the BAVA Spiritual Mission. This is a global movement helping spiritual seekers awaken to their divine gifts and live in alignment with their soul. Known as the spiritual anarchist, Ingrid mentors leaders, creatives, and misfits who are ready to shed conditioning, heal their trauma, and boldly embody their truth. From channeling the unconditional love of spirit to helping others unlock their psychic abilities and launch thriving spiritual businesses, Ingrid makes the mystical accessible. Her story is one of pain, awakening, and deep purpose. And today she's here to share her journey, her gifts, and her truth with all of us. But first, I want to thank you all for all of your support by subscribing to our YouTube channel and hitting the notification bell so that you never miss an amazing episode with all of the amazing guests that are coming on, sharing their spiritual journey and allowing us to awaken together. Now let's dive in. And okay, girlfriend. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I know
Thank
that
you.
we had a little bit of an issue there at
Busy
first, but
people.
yeah,
It takes a minute to schedule things
it's
sometimes.
great. But I was like, she's gonna be on the show. I know it. I feel it. I
Awesome.
feel it in my soul. So
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that I'm here. Thank you, Annie.
Yeah, I was checking out your website. Very impressive.
Oh,
Everything
thanks.
done.
It
Yeah.
just got redone. I'm super happy with it
It's a
because
great
it's
it's a great
fun.
website, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, really great. So yeah, I was checking it out and I was looking at everything that you're doing and all the different workshops and how you have all these speaking engagements. You have one coming up now, right?
Yeah. My
Yeah.
next one is in Knoxville in August.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
hmm
Yeah. Busy girl indeed.
Yeah. I'm not sad about it.
So, okay, so let's get started. I'm just gonna jump right in. So when Welcome to the show. And let's start from the beginning, with shaping your spiritual path. You lost your father at a young age. You were only 12 years old.
I did. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was young.
Yeah. So that's got to have a significant impact on your life, right?
Oh, it sure did. Yeah. And, before he passed away, he was my primary caregiver. So I had a very alternative upbringing. I lived off grid in the mountains, the Sierra Nevada foothills in Northern California.
That's
And my
cool.
my dad was, yeah, I mean, it was something, right? So
Yeah.
my dad was very alternative thinker. He had PTSD. He was a Vietnam veteran. So he
Mhm.
had some skewed viewpoints about the world, more leaning more towards probably paranoia than anything else. So
Mhm.
he wanted to I think he wanted to make sure his children were molded right.
Right.
So, but there was that militant piece of my childhood, and it was militant, but it was spiritual as well. He was a very spiritual person,
Mhm.
but he was militant about his spirituality. So
Yeah.
that was my spiritual foundation. And after he died, everything changed. It went from this very um the word is escaping me. It's a really obvious one, but like tucked away, sheltered. That's the word I'm looking for. This sheltered life to now we're in school. Now we're like in the world. And then that shifted things. And I did a lot of work around, I've done a lot of work around that, around a shake, like an intense childhood, and then,
So who did you go live with once
uh,
he passed?
well, my parents were married, but my
Oh,
mom
okay.
worked. My
Oh,
mom worked, and
I
he
got
stayed
you.
home and did the kids, right? Did the family and all of that. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very
So
progressive.
yeah, I mean, so my mom's pretty funny. She goes, yeah, we have a completely traditional marriage, except I work and he stays home, which means
Yeah.
she also did a lot of the the mom stuff as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like,
Well, it's like most women in today's society, right? Like, yeah, we're out there,
yeah,
we're making the money, we've got the career going, but at the end of the day, when we get home, the kids need mom, and you
they
still
do, yeah.
and you still
And
have to do all that. So
and
it's
she was
like,
ahead of her time, right? So
yeah,
she
for
was,
sure.
but she's amazing. She's always been ahead of her time. She's a retired school teacher, which is ironic. So she worked as a school teacher to support my father keeping his kids off grid and out of the system, right?
I
So
love
it was like,
that.
okay. But she's a retired school teacher and now she makes jewelry full time. So she found this whole creative flowering. She makes this incredible jewelry. It's like
Yeah.
artwork. It's like sells for a bunch of money because it should, because she's amazing. And her so she's got this whole new life that is just really fun
Well, that's
to
great.
see her.
That's great that she was able to find, right, a
Yeah.
creative outlet and a passion later in
Yeah.
life as well. Not a lot of elders do, and
Well, I
that's
think
where they
it's
fall into that like depression and monotony.
yeah. Yeah, I've always she's a person who's always been an example of like, you just keep growing. You just
Yeah,
keep going. You just
keep
keep
going.
going. And it's like, okay. So
Yep.
that's what I do in my life. And my dad was an example of that too. Despite his trauma, he was always trying to get better. And he was
Yeah.
always using spirituality to try and get better. And at the end of the day, like my upbringing is what inspires me to do the work that I do, which is I try and help people get better. Right. And
Yeah.
I do that through, spirituality, spiritual mentoring. You found me on TikTok, and most of my TikTok is about psychic development because I kind
Hmm.
of niche down with different
Right. Right.
platforms.
That was what
I
was working for you.
I tried to cross pollinate everything, but I do a lot,
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah. I
I
was
do
checking it out on
psychic
your website.
development. Yeah, I do the psychic development, and I do soulmatic renewal is the healing modality that I use, which is really, I think, what changes the most lives. And that's where a lot of my passion lies, especially right now. I'm really committed to that this year and the psychic development as well. But like I say, different platforms for
Yeah.
different
Well,
different
we'll
avenues.
definitely get into everything that you're offering with your workshops. And you do it via Zoom, I would imagine, or do you
Yeah.
actually go on site?
No, I do everything pretty much everything via Zoom because I also travel full time.
Right.
That's the lifestyle I created for myself. So I'm
Cool.
currently in Nashville, but I have a van outside. And so I travel my van. I'm going to Southeast Asia this winter because that's just going to be great.
How cool is that? Oh my
Very cool.
God. That's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, hey, listen, if that's your calling and that's what you feel, right, compelled to
Oh, yeah.
do.
I mean, I never feel so creative and open-hearted and fulfilled as when I'm out traveling.
Yeah.
The most serendipitous meetings, it's just miracles abound. It's just the place where like when I'm in that zone and I'm just on the move, I don't have to be doing anything special. I can
Yeah.
just be going to a new city and just like going downtown and something magical will happen. And that's like an energy, a frequency that I just love to be in as
How
often as
how
possible.
long have you been doing this where you're traveling and just helping people on the road?
I finally started that in 2022. My son grew up, right, or enough where he went to live with his father full time. So I waited about a year to see if that would work out. It did.
Right.
Like it was great. And so then after a year, I gave up my apartment. I pushed 90% of my possessions off the back of my friend's pickup truck. I turned my Scion into a micro camper and I just hit the road. And Monica, I just drove for 2,000 miles and wrote poetry. And that's just all I did in
Let me tell you,
2022.
that takes a lot of courage to do that on your own, a woman out there by herself and just going with that calling that
Yeah.
you have. That's
Well,
scary.
I try not to be dumb, like I don't take a lot of risks
Yeah,
because a woman traveling by herself. If I was a dude, I'd probably get into a lot more adventures, but it's
right.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't really mind quiet traveling.
So let's talk a little bit about you're very open about it in your content that you used alcohol to self-soothe, right? There was a point in your life where you were masking a lot of, your childhood
Hmm.
pain with alcohol, and nothing good comes of that. We all
Nope.
know that, right?
Nothing good comes of that.
Yeah.
Does not work.
And at that point, that really is just a shield that you're
Yeah.
throwing on yourself, and you're not being authentic, right? Like at this point, it's a substance that's communicating for you. So at what point do you say to yourself, like, how old were you? At what point do you say, like, enough is enough? This is not who I want to be.
Yeah.
I'm more than this. I'm more than getting drunk all the time.
Yeah. I mean, how old was I? I think I was 29 when I got sober. I'm 41 now.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was, I was very fortunate where my bottom wasn't too low. Like, so when I did go to AA for 12 months and I got a sponsor and I went all in and I did the steps. I did the 12 steps. I went all the way through. I did the inventory, which is super uncomfy, but like went ahead and did it. And for me, like I think what happened is I woke up one morning and I looked at my phone and I had deleted all of the messages and the number for the boyfriend I had at the time.
Ah,
And,
that's never
and
good.
I didn't remember doing it. Like, and I had been noticing that I had been talking to people on the phone and not remembering it, or just
Mhm.
remembering little pieces of it. And apparently I was pretty good at being blackout drunk. People didn't notice, apparently. There's like, I think somebody would have said, God, girl, like you told me, but like nobody did. Um, and I started like he would say things to me like, you said this mean thing to me on the phone. And I was like, no, I didn't. I wouldn't say that. Why
Right.
are you lying? And I was convinced I hadn't said it because I didn't remember it.
Right.
And so he's like, am I crazy? So
Yeah.
I was inadvertently like, shit. Now, this relationship was very unhealthy
Right.
and it ended shortly after I got sober because you know, um, but not to say that he was a horrible person, just that the two, oof, I was
Yeah.
not in a good place,
Girl,
clearly.
I've been there, done that, right?
Yeah,
With the
I was
toxic
like, that
relationship
was bad.
and drinking a little too much.
Yeah,
Been there,
but
done
I
that.
do think he was the catalyst. I call these people who come into our lives who
Yes.
transform us like the soulmates who destroy us. And
Yeah.
that was a really clear image I got years after we split up. I remember I had this vision, I guess. It was like I was sitting at the kitchen table, and all of a sudden I raised out of my body and I was face to face with this man, like his higher self, like our higher selves, like our spirits. And I felt the love. And that's when I knew that only a soul that loved me that much could be so
Trigger you at that point.
trigger
Hmm.
my transformation so deeply.
I
Like if
couldn't
it
agree
weren't
with you
that,
more.
that doesn't mean I ever want to speak to him again in this body, in this
Yeah.
lifetime. But from a soul perspective, I was like, oh, I get it. So it's made me look at my relationships, in general very differently.
Yeah.
But so I called him after I deleted him and I was like, what happened? And he said, you don't remember? I said, no. And then he told me what it was. And to be honest, I don't know what he said. So I don't, but apparently I just, and then he asked me the question. He said, are you an alcoholic? And I just remember saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
So we hung up the phone and I spent the day crying. And I went and stayed at his house for a couple of days to dry out and not drink. And then I went back to my apartment. And I realized at this time, fortunately, my son was up north visiting my mom. So I didn't have my kid because I was a single mom at the time. This would have
Yeah.
been,
21, right? You were a
yeah,
young mama.
yeah. I had him at 21. So this is when I was like 29. And I realized sitting in that apartment, I was like, I'm not going to be able to not drink if I don't do something, if I stay here. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to not do it. So I knew about AA, but I didn't really have an experience with it. So I cracked open my laptop and I just Googled AA meeting near me. And I found one. I just looked at the first one and I just got my keys, got my car and just drove to it. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did was walk into that AA meeting all by myself. I was this burning ball of pain and shame because that's the thing is when you're drinking like that you're covering up shame. You're not looking at the shame. And if we don't, so when you stop drinking alcohol, one of the side effects of alcohol is shame, and we're also using it to cope with our shame, right?
Mhm.
So I walked in and I was like, nobody better talk to me. It's like,
Right.
I am not going to be able to cope.
Yeah. You're just gonna start
So
bawling at that point,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Hmm.
the too much shame. I can't be crying in public.
Yeah.
And there was they had set up the tables in like a circle. And I went and I just sat down, and there was a woman in front of me who was older, probably in her 60s. I guess she was in her 60s at that time. And she looked at me and she goes, "Hello." And I said, "Hi." And she got the message, don't talk to her,
Right. Right.
So,
The energy was like, leave me
right. I'm like,
alone.
nope, you know.
Yeah.
And it was what was magical about this meeting I walked into though was the peer person who was running the meeting explained that it was a beginner's meeting. I had no idea. I just
How
went, right?
amazing, right? It was like,
And it
and you went
was,
to a
I
beginner
went to the
one.
beginner's meeting. And then
Hmm.
as the topic for everybody to go around and share about, I didn't share because I was like, nope, back
Not
off,
ready.
leave
I'm
me
not ready for
alone.
this yet. Yeah.
It was the topic was what happened? What brought you here? What got you into AA? What got you to the bottom of your alcohol use? And like I said, my bottom was not as severe as some people. So everybody had different stories and different levels of stuff that they
Hmm.
had dealt with and done and had to deal with. But as everybody was talking, I was like, I hear my experience in everybody's story, even though
Mhm.
it's different, right? So, and I was like, wow, these people are just like me. I
You're
didn't
not
think
you're,
I'm
you're
just
not
like them.
alone.
I thought they're
Yeah.
just like me.
Okay.
So I'm
No,
like, okay.
I
And then
completely understand you. Yeah.
the woman sitting next to me, she just slid a business card over. She goes, "You call me." And I was like, "Not likely, lady." So I
When
was
you're
gonna call her.
ready, when you're ready, you call me.
She was just like, "You call me." So then that evening I did decide to call her, and her name is Peggy, and she became my sponsor, and she just pulled me right through that time in my life, and I'm still very close to her today.
Oh my
She's
God, I
one of my
have
favorite people.
goosebumps. What a great
Yeah.
story. You
Yeah.
know, do you think that a lot of spiritually awakened souls, such as yourself, um, I consider myself that in after the pandemic, it was just like it was like one slap in the face after another. That was
Mhm.
taking place in my life. It was rough, girl. Like I was like, give me a break. God, give me a
Wow.
break. And but what I have noticed, speaking with so many different guests on the show, is that a lot of psychics or mediums, spiritually awakened souls, do have an alcohol disorder, right? Because they're trying to mask something at one point in their lives. And then everything that you just said, right? Like I got help, and I decided, like, nothing good was going to come of this life. Why is that? What would be your feedback on that? Why somebody
Yeah.
that's so empathetic
Mhm.
uses this as a coping mechanism?
Well, so I think that people who are very spiritually sensitive and require a spiritual experience to function, when they don't understand that's what they require, they develop addictive personality, addictive behaviors. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be
Yeah,
shopping. It can be
right.
scrolling on TikTok. I have to watch scrolling on TikTok. Like I know I'm avoiding something when I'm
Guilty.
like deep in TikTok. I'm like, I gotta stop. Right. Or
Eating, overeating.
cigarettes,
Yeah.
eating, shopping,
Hmm.
it can be, it can really manifest as anything. And people who have that, it's this wide opening to spirit, right? And you're trying to find something, God, to fill you. And when we don't understand that's what we need, or we don't understand how to get that, then we try and fill it with anything we can get a hold of,
Yeah.
and nothing is going to fill it. And so it's not 12 steps that helps you recover. It's spirituality that helps
Yeah.
you recover. It's when people can lock in on something spiritual, that they're able to let go of the craving and the need for something to fill them up, because then they actually get fulfilled. They
And
actually
I think a lot of it is also like getting to a point in your life where you just learn to forgive yourself for your mistakes. Like
Right.
one,
And you can't do that when you're in active addiction. That's the shame piece,
right.
right? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, no, no.
It's
But that's
like,
exactly right, because it's so shameful to be in that state of mind, and you're looked down on by society because you have this addiction, right? And
yeah.
it's what I always say, everybody is a reflection of themselves, right? Everything that you judge on others is a reflection of yourself,
Oh yeah.
because in the end it's like, okay, so I have an addiction to, I don't know, doing cocaine. But
Uh-huh.
what about you and sleeping pills, that you can't go to sleep without sleeping pills every night, or taking Xanax, or taking, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it's medically prescribed, it's okay. So it's just,
Yeah.
there's the judgment of others, I think, is
Yeah.
is the
There's
worst part of all.
humans are so silly.
Yeah.
We're just so silly like that. Yeah, judging other people is like, I feel like my one of the biggest blessings in my life, Monica, is every time I judge somebody, I end up experiencing what I judged. And what I love about that, even though it's not super comfy, like what I love about that is it has taught me to let go of judgment more quickly. And it has taught me, it helps me be compassionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
a
know, it's
hundred
really
percent.
helped my compassion. So I feel like that's good karma, to be like, oh, you're going to be judgy, Ingrid. Okay. The universe is like, let's just give you the other
Uh-huh.
side of
Let me
that.
give you a taste of your own medicine there.
Okay. Okay. Like,
How old were you when you first noticed that you had these psychic abilities and these gifts?
I was a child when I experienced them, but I didn't know what I was experiencing. And it was about a year and a half after I got sober, I had my spiritual awakening,
Mhm.
which was a completely destabilizing experience. That was incredible, but it definitely informs the work I do with people today, because my experience was so destabilizing. My awakening was so intense that if I'd been in the wrong environment, I would have easily ended up medicated and,
Really? It was that
committed. It
intense?
was that intense and ungrounding.
How
When I
can
was a
you? Yeah.
kid, yeah, well, yeah. So when I was a kid, I mean, I used to like see faces when I closed my eyes all the time. I remember hearing my life narrated in my head in the third person, like somebody was telling a story of my life. It was very strange.
Were you scared?
Um, no, I wasn't scared. I remember the first time I wrote a poem, I was like 7 years old, and I was walking across the living room and I stopped dead in my tracks because there was this man in my head. And he started telling me this very intense story. And I just grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, and it came out as a poem written from the perspective of a grown man. And I remember at the time I was like, cool, I wrote a poem. Like I didn't connect that, right? I didn't
Right. You didn't
understand.
understand it.
And
Yeah.
I went to show my parents and they were busy. There was three kids and they were trying to like clean the closet or something. And they're like, get out of here. I'm like, okay, fine. I tossed it on the table and forgot
Yeah.
about it. And the next day, my father, who you can imagine, Vietnam veteran, rigid, boomer dad, I remember several times that day he said, that was a really good poem, Ingrid. That was really good. And I was
That's
like,
very deep.
thank you. And then he finally he was so confused. He said, Ingrid, why did you write that from the perspective of a grown man? And I was like, I don't know.
So
I just like,
you never told them that it was actually a grown man narrating something to you in your head.
no, I mean, I remember it vividly, but it never occurred to me to try and explain it until later when I had my spiritual awakening and all of my psychic and intuitive gifts. I mean, they were already there, but they really came online.
Hmm.
And then I started recalling experiences I had in childhood, and I was like, oh,
That's what that was.
that was
Yeah.
mediumship.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. And then and I've written poetry my entire life. And it's like, even when I was a teenager, I used to explain it as like, it's like I'm not writing it. It's like it's coming through, it's coming into me and coming through me. And then I'm like, oh, you're channeling. Okay, got it. Right.
Well,
But I didn't have an understanding of that at the time.
that's what they say with all these famous composers, right? That it's
Yeah.
that they come with, with these masterpieces that they, put together, and they say it's just an energy that came through me, and this was
Hmm.
the result, right? So it's
Yeah.
definitely a spiritual connection that you're having at that point.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I really understood it after I had my spiritual awakening, and that happened at a plant medicine ceremony. And I didn't
Oh,
do
I want to do
anything.
that so badly.
Yeah,
That's on
so
my list of things to do.
I have thoughts about plant medicine,
Oh,
having done it.
okay.
Like, so on the one hand, I think it's an incredible tool for deeper healing work.
So you did what, ayahuasca?
No, 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 no. Here's the thing. I did cacao, and it
Okay.
completely blasted me open. Cacao is essentially like it's chocolate, right?
Yeah.
It's a raw form of chocolate. It's called a heart opener. But I was so ready for that radical transformation that it didn't take very much for me to get there. Now, the people I did it with, they didn't do ayahuasca right out the gate, which for me was a blessing because I wouldn't have been able to handle ayahuasca. I am too sensitive, very sensitive to what I put in my body, very sensitive to my environment. I have to really watch my energy. I did do ayahuasca several years later, but I'm glad that I waited because I had to put all of the tools I learned to use in order to stay in my body and stay grounded.
Okay.
And one time I did DMT,
Mm-hmm.
and I would not do that again because what happened when I did DMT, I went to take the DMT
What's
hit.
that's what, mushrooms?
No, DMT is like ayahuasca has DMT, and DMT is the concentration, like all of it, right? What happens is you take one hit of this DMT substance and you have an incredibly, extraordinarily potent hallucination experience,
So
right? A visual. So you go in a
it's like an
dream.
acid trip almost.
Yeah, but way, way, way more intense.
Ugh.
And it only lasts a couple of minutes, but like you can live an entire lifetime in that minute. It's called the God molecule. And I'm not against it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did it, um, and I kind of knew this about myself, so I kicked myself, but I had protection when I did it. Here's what happened to me. I took the hit of DMT, and as soon as I did it, my spirit guide showed up and just threw like fireballs of protection at me. Like, what are you doing? And I'd never seen him like that before. And I was like, uh oh, like I done it now.
I shouldn't be
And
doing
so I
that.
had this like And the hallucination is just as real as this,
Mm-hmm.
as you and me. And it was a really intense experience. And I felt like I almost broke out, like broke my brain, like broke my consciousness. And
How long does that hallucination last
a couple
for?
minutes,
Thank
like a
God.
minute. Yeah. But for me, when you're in it, it can feel a lot longer,
Right,
but it only
right,
lasts like a minute. So ayahuasca is like the plant form of that. And so
right.
it is intense, but it is more gentle and it is longer lived. DMT is like bam, right? And when I came out of it, it was very clear to me. Like my guide showed up and just really helped explain this to me. Like, that is not for you, Ingrid.
Okay.
You are not grounded enough and tethered enough to the earth to get away with that. I could have blasted out permanently. Like I had my spiritual awakening and I became very ungrounded. This could have been even more intense than that. So knowing what I know about me and how hard I work to stay grounded, I know that I have to be very careful with plant medicine. So there are some things that I will do safely. Mushrooms are very safe for me. Like I don't have a problem with that. And that's pretty much all I like to do. But
Well,
that's not true for everybody. Most
mushrooms,
people don't have that experience with plant medicine.
I started microdosing to get me out of an anxiety
Oh,
funk
I've
that I
heard
was
wonderful
in.
things. Did that work?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. To the
I
point that
mean,
now I'll just take it as needed, right?
that's
Like if
fantastic.
I'm taking a trip to go visit my mother and dealing with the trauma there, right? Like I might
Hmm.
microdose for
Yeah.
the weekend and it just, you don't feel high in any way, shape, or form. Like
Hmm.
you don't feel off, you're just
Yeah.
kind of like, if there's a problem, you fix it,
Yeah.
so I find it to be great. I love it. I love it.
I have done so I've done bigger doses of mushrooms. I've done little microdosing as well. And I'm a big fan of mushrooms. So
Hmm.
gentle. So and there's so much research being done about how psilocybin work is just rewiring people's brains for
Yes.
alcoholism and addiction,
Vietnam veterans,
depression,
all the
Vietnam veterans.
how
I
the
mean, and then
suicide, everything.
combining that with somatic work. Oh my God. It's just mind blowing what we're able to like really start to fix now. And it's becoming more and more like not mainstream yet, but more and more like accepted.
Socially acceptable. a hundred
Yeah.
percent. Everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's talking about it. They sell it
Hmm.
everywhere now also, right? Like you want to go get a
Mm.
microdose of mushrooms,
I
you
did not know that they're selling microdoses
oh
of
yeah,
mushrooms.
they got
Where are you
chocolate,
where are you
chocolate.
located?
I'm right now in Orlando, but
Oh, okay.
I've been in Miami pretty much my whole life.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
realize that. I haven't seen it around where like, but I'm happy to
yeah.
hear that.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
done
because it's
wonders.
magic.
Yeah, I have
But
I've even recommended it to friends that have struggled with,
oh, yeah,
anxiety,
100%. I have
depression,
too.
and they have said that it's worked for them as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely
Now,
that common denominator.
what I feel about like kind of going back to like
Hmm.
plant medicine and like the caveat or what I always say when I talk about plant medicine is it useful? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, is it useful all the time? No. Now that's microdosing is different because you're using it in small doses for a purpose. But there are people who are doing, 10 ayahuasca journeys a month. You're
Yeah,
not doing healing work.
that
You're
can't be
doing
good for you.
recreational drug use and you're
Yeah,
calling it spiritual work.
that can't be good.
Because once you get the medicine, the plant medicine, it opens you up to be able to access deeper parts of you than you can on your own. And then you have work to do. And if you just keep going back for the trip, guess what you're not doing? You're
Right.
not doing the work.
Putting in the work.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the other thing I think is really important, people who are facilitating plant medicine, they need to have integration, like strong integration in place. Because I did a plant medicine journey. I completely transformed, had a spiritual awakening, came online with my gifts, and I was just left. There was no integration process to help me ground in and function. And so I spent the next 2 years trying to get myself back down to earth. Now, do I regret it? Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
And what it did do was it informed me about how important it is to stay grounded and tethered. So when I'm teaching in when I teach psychic development, when I do spiritual mentorship, we are first and foremost grounding because I'm going to get them to the point where they are as spiritually awake as I am from the plant medicine journey, but we're going to do it in a way that's grounded so they don't become untethered and waste their time or risk, a family member or somebody coming in and going, "Oh my God, you're crazy, lock her up," or what have you.
Yeah,
We're
right.
not doing that. So I feel very strongly about that. I'm pretty fanatical about grounding. We do it all the time
Yeah.
because it's really important not to do that to ourselves or do that to other people.
Are
So
we
that's my one criticism.
are we all born with spiritual gifts? They're just undeveloped?
I
It,
believe so.
does everybody have the capabilities that you have, for example?
Yes, everybody has the capabilities. Everybody does it differently. So nobody does it exactly like me. Nobody
Right.
does it exactly like you. But not everybody is here to explore and express that because I feel like we're at a an edge point in our evolution or our development as humans. And so there's a bunch of us who are waking up spiritually and pushing the envelope when it comes to spirituality, intuition, connecting in different ways. There's still a lot of the population who's not doing that yet. It's like the 100th monkey syndrome,
Mhm.
right? When enough of us wake up, everybody will wake up. So not everybody has to do that. But what you're seeing, certainly what I'm perceiving, is so many people are like kind of waking up to these gifts, their spiritual gifts, or they're seeing that it's possible. They're drawn to psychic works, they're drawn to psychic mediums. They want to understand their experiences, they're having experiences. It's such an exciting time to be alive. So, yes, everybody can do this. And one of the things, what I do when I teach this is I don't come and go, okay, Monica, here's how you develop your clairvoyance. Do this exercise. That's not what we do. We go, okay, Monica, let's find out what your strongest psychic gift is. Maybe it's clairvoyance. Maybe it's clairaudience or hearing, whatever it is. Okay, now we know what that is. We've gone through and we've identified that. Now let's practice with that low-hanging fruit, and let's learn to trust it. And then you learn to go, this is what it feels like, this is what it doesn't feel like. And then any other gifts that you have will over time get stronger on their own. So I'm not teaching people how to be psychic. I'm helping them learn what their psychic feels like because it doesn't feel like mine. I can't tell you what yours feels
Right.
like, but
Everybody's
I can
different.
guide you to experience it. And I can also guide you to experience what it is not. And so then you feel the contrast through
Right.
practicing.
Is it that thought in my head, or is it an
Yeah,
actual person
right.
communicating or spirit
And you
communicating with
don't
me?
know until you blow it. Right? Until you're like, that wasn't it at all. So a lot of the work I do is helping people overcome their fear of failure and being wrong, which is a big one for a lot of us,
Yeah.
and just like what I say, I say to my students, bad ideas only. And I actually stole that from Kokomoko, who's on TikTok, and she's this brand strategist. And
Hmm.
she did this video one time where she said she got a bunch of CEOs into a room to do some brainstorming, and she told them bad ideas only. So then they had to force themselves to get really creative. And I went, that is brilliant, lady. I'm taking that and applying it to my
Yeah.
classes. So that's what I do with my students. I go, when you're practicing reading somebody, bad ideas only. Because when we're trying to make sense of what's coming through,
That's when it doesn't happen. Right.
that's what it doesn't happen. That's
That's
what
so
it's like.
true.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm getting this, but it has no context for me. Well, guess what? It's not supposed to have context for you.
Right.
It's not your
So
message.
let's go through the different types of mediumship. Can you walk us through all of them?
Yeah. Um, okay, so there's different types of I'm gonna start a little bit further back. I'm gonna talk about psychic versus intuition, and then I'll talk about mediumship versus channeling. This is how
Okay.
I differentiate it, okay?
Okay.
So intuition is that sort of body pull. It's like a grunt, you know?
Like that feeling where you're just like
Yeah, just
something's
mm.
off. Yeah,
Yeah,
something's
yeah,
off
yeah, yeah,
here.
right? Your
Yeah.
psychic abilities are like your physical senses. It's how you perceive psychic intuitive information. It's your language, right? So
Mhm.
clairvoyance is clear seeing, and you will see images in your head. Some people are very literal with their clairvoyance,
Like
and
they
some
see dead
people,
people.
yeah, and that's clairvoyant mediumship, right?
Hmm.
Some people are symbolic, right? So they might see something in their head like, oh, I see a teddy bear. Oh, I know what that means. And so you have to learn your language of spirit,
Hmm.
right? As you go, as you practice. So that's clairvoyance, and that'll be spirit writing your imagination. Clairaudience is clear hearing. And that can show up as hearing a voice outside your head, which is super scary for every single one of us. I don't care
Yeah.
how long you've done this before. Every time a voice says my name, I'm like, ah, it's like every time.
You hear it that clearly?
Yeah, I have done. Yeah, not all the time because
Yeah.
people who are that clairaudient typically shut that down pretty early in life because you're not supposed to hear voices. It's a bad
Right.
thing, right?
Right.
Not supposed to hear voices. But then what happens is it'll morph. And people who are very clairaudient might hear song loops in their head, right?
Mhm.
Or and that will be the lyrics will be the message. Or they will hear an inner voice, but it is not their inner voice. And you can tell the difference because usually when it's ourselves and it's our ego, it's more critical and it's I focused. I want this. I want to do that. I don't like that. Right. When it's spirit, it is you and it is kind and it is benevolent. Right.
Is there with when that happens to a person, right, where you're hearing this in your head, is it in your own voice or is it a different voice or
It'll
does
be a
it
different
vary?
voice.
It'll be
It,
a
it
different
typically it'll
voice.
be a different voice. So my clairaudience isn't as strong as my clairvoyance. And so my clairaudience will kind of come to the surface when I'm like focusing on something, right? Which is really interesting. So I'll be focusing on something on the computer. Maybe I'll be like doing some web work, something's just kind of, and then I'll start hearing conversations in my head. They'll get like louder and louder. It'll be all different voices. And then as soon as I'm doing something else or like talking to you, like I don't hear voices in my head right now while I'm talking to you because that's just not how it shows up for me. Other people, if they're very clairaudient and they're doing a reading, they're going to hear voices while they're reading for you or while they're talking to you. I will see visuals and I will feel things, which is the next one, which is clairsentience, which
Mm-hmm.
is clear feeling. So that is feeling emotions and that is feeling physical sensations in the body as well.
Pain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A clairsentient medium will probably feel like, oh, I feel my heart. This person had a heart attack, right? That kind of a thing.
Yes.
And then claircognizance is the final one. Claircognizance is clear knowing. And essentially, it's claircognizant, it just pops out of your mouth like, before you have any time to judge it. Claircognizance is one of the more challenging clairs to be strong in because you don't have anything to base it off of. Like if you're clairvoyant, you're like, well, I saw it, right? You're clairaudient, well, I heard it. But this is like, bleh! And you're like, where did that come from? I don't know. I don't know. And a lot of people, here's what's really interesting, Monica. When I'm teaching people and we first start exploring what kind of like what somebody's strongest psychic ability is, a lot of people will say, I'm claircognizant because I don't, it comes out of nowhere. But when we actually dive in and we do our meditation and we start like, no, you're not, you're clairvoyant, but it comes so naturally to you and it's so easy, you don't realize it's happening. So you think it comes out of nowhere. And
Ah.
that's why everybody has psychic abilities and they're going, they're firing, but people are not noticing and they're ignoring it and they're dismissing it because it
Mm-hmm.
just seems so normal to them. When people are learning psychic development, they think they're going to have this big, massive, awakening, explosive experience like, oh my God, this incredible aha moment. And that is not how it goes. How
Right.
it goes is people like, that oh,
That's
I've
what that
always
was.
done that. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, okay. And the thing about our intuition is like, it doesn't come with a charge. And so it's easy to ignore because we don't get emotional. It's not fear based. It's just the facts.
Yeah.
And so we tend to listen to things that scare us or things that cause a big emotional charge. But that's ego.
Right.
That's your mind. Your intuition is just like, "Doot." And so it's hard to pay attention to, hard to trust.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at what point are you able to channel? Like can you break that down for us when it's
Yeah.
happening to you, for example, with the
So
poetry?
yeah. So people who are naturally good at channeling do it spontaneously, like in their art, in their, creativity. When I'm teaching it, I differentiate mediumship and channeling as mediumship is channeling anybody in a body, animal
Mhm.
or person who is in a body. It's a particular frequency band. Channeling, same thing, but it's divine spirit. It's a different frequency. So for me, mediumship, often what happens is when mediumship occurs for me, I start yawning, which is a weird response. But I have an interesting story about that. But I start yawning and I get really tired. I feel like I want to fall down and go to sleep. And then the person comes through, they deliver the message, and then it's complete. Oop, and I'm back and I feel fine again because it's a shift. It's that kind of shift in frequency for me. When I'm channeling, I feel high. I feel joyful. I feel open. For both things, you have to be grounded because we're not really designed for it.
Mhm.
We're designed to live in the physical world and have the physical experience. And when we're doing mediumship or channeling or any kind of readings, we're in the non-physical. Doesn't mean we can't do it. It means we have to balance it. We have to balance it with being grounded.
Right, right. Oh, super interesting. Do you
Yeah.
have a lot of, do you do tarot?
Yeah, I do tarot. I use tarot cards. I don't teach tarot cards anymore because what I found is when people start with tarot cards or any other kind of divination tool, they get in their head. They
Hmm.
actually lose touch with their intuition because they start going, what does the card mean? Let me
Right. They start
study
reading
it.
the
Let me
card too much.
right? And what I want you to do is like I want you to learn your intuition. I want you to trust your clairs, know how you're intuitive, and then use a tarot card as a launching off pad. Oh, tell the story on the card. Oh, I know what that means because my intuition is telling me it's
Right.
telling me
You're
the
looking,
story.
you're looking at the card, and at that point, you're putting together a story based on what it's
Yeah.
telling you, right? For that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for some people who I read for, sometimes they are more comfortable when I use cards because it's weird to have you pulling stuff out of nowhere for some people, right?
No, and and I think it gives you something tangible, right? And maybe that's the
Yes.
comfort level also. Like, okay, I'm actually able to see what you're doing and you're not just making stuff up in your head,
Exactly.
right?
Right? Like, oh, and then sometimes for me, so our intuition ebbs and flows. So none of us are like fully at our highest intuitive power all the time. It ebbs and flows because sometimes we need to be more in the human experience, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
we're moving into the more of the spiritual experience. So you just learn to trust that. But sometimes if I have a reading on the books, I can still do the reading, but I need a little extra help or I want a little extra help. So I'll use cards more. And then I'll
Hmm.
look at the cards and, oh, there it is. Yes. Right. So it can be helpful in that respect. But I never want my students to get dependent on cards or any kind of tools because that's when you start to actually lose a bit of your intuitive superpowers. And
Yeah.
we don't want that.
So let me ask you, what has been a very, very memorable medium experience that you've personally had that you can share with us?
Mm, okay. So the one that comes to mind, which always cracks me up, this just goes to show like you gotta trust your intuition. You trust it when you're doing mediumship. You gotta balance trusting it and then letting the person in front of you like tell you what's going on. When I teach mediumship, I say evidence first and then message. Because if you don't give somebody evidence that you're connecting with their loved one, they're not going to believe the message. There's going to be that seed of doubt that they walk away with, and then that won't complete for them. So I remember I was doing a reading for this one gentleman, and his this man came through. I said, "Oh, your uncle is here, like your great uncle." He goes, "I don't know who you're talking about." And so I started describing him, and he goes, "Oh, it's my grandpa." I was like, "He says he's your great uncle." And he goes, "Nope, nope, that's my grandpa." And I went, "Okay, all right." So anyway, grandpa has this. And I was really vivid with the imagery. So he really knew who it was and could identify with it. And he received the message, and it was really meaningful for him. And then I overheard him talking to another woman in the shop that I was in a little bit later. And here's what he said. He goes, "Yeah, my grandpa came through and it was amazing. I got this incredible message. And, he actually, he was my great uncle, but I called him grandpa." And I was like,
Ah!
"Excuse me." Why did you
That's what
say?
I told you.
And then he's like, "Oh, so that's the thing with mediumship is like a lot of times when we're doing mediumship readings, for people, they have a pretty strong expectation of who they want to come through or what they
Hmm.
think is going to come through. And working on that expectation with your clients is number one, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't guarantee anything. You know, and sometimes people will come through and they don't know who it is or, or what it is or whatever. But it turns out it's just somebody they're not expecting, right?
Have you ever had like like a demonic or evil entity that's trying to communicate through you?
Not through me because hell no. I mean, nothing is getting into my being. And the truth is, like, if you have even a mediocre frequency, you're not in danger of anything attaching itself to you and possessing you. Now, that doesn't mean we can't deal with these things and they can't scare us and
Hmm.
cause issues for us and whip us up.
Right.
Like a lot of times, when if a house has a negative entity. And I don't like to use the word demonic because it gives it all of this like weird historical Christian power that it doesn't really have. And it immediately makes us afraid. Oh, demonic.
Right.
That's the reaction we all have.
Very
So they're
true.
negative entities. They do exist. They're freaking gross. Nobody likes them. Um, but they don't have as much power in the physical world as we give them because we're afraid of them, and they actually work to scare us because once we whip up in fear, they have control, right? Or more accurately, we don't have control. So technically, all you have to do to get rid of an entity is control your fear. Because if you're a physical creature in the physical world, this is your domain, right?
Right.
Now, that being said, not super easy at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're clapping and poking and ringing doorbells and moving shit around. Who's going to be able to overcome their fear at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Jeez.
Right. So and then once you have that fear, once you're in the grip of that fear, what's really helpful is to have a ritual to help like kind of funnel your faith into, right? Because once you just have no fear and you have faith, you just like, get out of here, right? It goes away really fast. But I had an entity in my home that came walking in with somebody. I watched this thing stream into my house as it walked in with somebody, a family member of mine who was having a rough time. He's like doing a lot of drugs and just, and I just watched it come in. I went, oh, dang it, and that thing tortured me for nights on end. And I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping. I mean, it was doing scary things.
Yeah.
And I went to I was talking to one of my students about it because I was like, man, it just keeps waking me up and I'm too scared to do anything about it. I can't, and she had studied hoodoo. And so she gave me a hoodoo ritual and she gave me the supplies for it. And I went, cool, I will try this. So that
At this
night,
point, you're trying anything, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm fine. And that night I'm sleeping and it wakes me up and it would wake me up, it would like clap in my ear, right? Oh,
Oh my God, I would
or
freak
I'd be
out.
just falling asleep and I would hear it and it would scream my name, right? And then one night I'm sleeping, it freaking rings my doorbell and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, oh my God. So you can imagine I was just like, oh, flustered. So I finally had this hoodoo ritual and I don't remember exactly how to do it now, but I had like the candles and the dressing, I had brick dusting, I had all the things that she'd given me
Yeah.
and she told me how to do it. So that night I sat there and I did the ritual and it's like I lived at the top of an old church, right? So it was already kind of creepy. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like the whole room would sway and creak when this thing was in there. And I just did this ritual and when I was doing it, it was calming, right? Because it was a ritual. And so I just went, this is going to work. It was something to hold my faith. I could put all of my faith into it. And I did the ritual and I blew out the candles and then everything went quiet. It was the creaking stopped, the swaying stopped, the whole energy shifted, and then it was gone. And it was gone permanently.
Thank
And I
God.
was like, wow. And it was because I found a way through ritual to conquer my fear. Okay, here's something that'll work, right? And so then I went around and I did the
So
protections the next day.
in
And
essence, it also goes back to whatever belief system you have inside of you at the moment as well,
yes,
right? That's it.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's how you control your area.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are so powerful.
We
Humans are
are.
so powerful.
We
We
are.
absolutely create our reality
Yeah.
every second. And that's why I love the work that I do and the people that I get to spend time with, right? Like you, because we're doing it. We're stepping into our spiritual power every
Hmm.
single day. And I don't mean spiritual power like power over other people, but power over
Helping
our
other people.
lives,
It's about
helping other
helping
people.
others.
Very much
Absolutely.
so. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to see people empowered, everybody empowered.
Yes, me too. And that was it. Like after my father passes away in 2019, I
Mm.
get a divorce.
Oh my
COVID
God.
happens.
Oh, geez.
Toxic relationship, job to job to job to job, right? It was
Mm.
just like very unstable financially, you name it. It was just
Yeah.
raising a daughter by myself.
Hmm.
It was just like all of these life challenges. It brought me to the bottom because I did hit the bottom at one point.
Yeah.
But I think you need that. I think in
Oh,
life you kind of need
absolutely.
that. And then that's kind of like when all of a sudden, then it's like, look, and as I'm talking to you, look at my phone, 444.
Yes.
I got to a point, Ingrid, where I just said, that's it. You just need to let go, detach, go with the
Yeah.
flow.
Surrender.
Everything has always worked out for you. You've never not been able to figure it out. Let go. I relocated to another city with my daughter by myself. I had to leave the toxicness behind me. My and it was like a job offer. Everything just fell into my plate at that
Mm.
point where I was just like, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm going with it. I'm gonna go with
Yeah.
this. I'm gonna
That's
go with this. There's a reason why this is bringing me over here. And I started the podcast, you know, messing around with my girlfriends about dating apps, kind of just to stay busy and staying out of trouble. And it's turned into this amazing spiritual podcast,
that's
which is really
fantastic.
what I want to do. I want to be able to share all of these amazing spiritual stories with others so that it's not such a taboo subject and so others understand, hey, I'm not alone. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not a failure.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone through the same thing and they're doing great now. There's always a way out, right? We just
Oh,
got to
yeah.
put in, we just got to, we got to put in the work.
Well, it's, what you touched on is that surrender, that spiritual surrender. It's when we get so broken that we finally go, Uncle, I'm going to stop fighting. Then suddenly our will and God's will merge.
Yeah,
And that's when you get into the
I
flow.
like that. I like that
Yeah.
so much. Yeah. So let's get a little bit into the BAVA Spiritual Mission. That was
Yeah.
super
My baby.
interesting. Yeah, talk to
Yeah.
me about that.
So I founded the BAVA Spiritual Mission in 2017 and it's gone through a number of iterations because that's what these things do. But I started it because my guide told me to. My guide, his name is Mons, Monz.
Do you have several
And
guides or just one main guide?
I have one main guide. And I
Okay.
have other, like, I have family members who are sort of support guides, but like he's my main man. Um, and so I'm sitting there.
What's his
I don't
name?
know what
You
is
said Mike?
Mons,
Oh, Mons.
Monz.
I
I don't
like
know.
it. I don't
I
know. It's
like it too.
sexy. I'm feeling it.
It's something. So I'm sitting there and he shows up, and when he shows up without me calling him, I'm like, "Oh, that doesn't happen very often."
Yeah.
And he said, "Ingrid, you need to start a church." I said, "Absolutely not. There's no way. I'm not a joiner. I don't do that's not my thing at all." And then he goes away, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." And then he comes back again a few days later. He said, "Ingrid, you need to start a church. You're going to teach people how to do what you do, and you need to protect them." And I went, whoa. So I started looking into starting a church, and I did it because it was on guidance, right? So I founded this church, and it's not mine because you don't own a church, but I founded the church, and I started going. It's a digital church, so I go live and I talk, but more than that, I train people in spiritual leadership, and I do that through the doorway of psychic development. But my BAVA program, our BAVA program, is, yes, it is psychic development, because when you tap into your intuition and you trust yourself, you're tapping into source. But it's also a spiritual healing program, and it is designed to help you peel away the layers of conditioning and trauma that has kept you in fear of living fully, authentically, and in spiritual leadership. And then the other side of that is helping you develop your gifts so that you know what your spiritual strengths are, and you can trust the calling of spirit, right? You can trust that on your divine path. And some people, after they graduate, they go on to start a spiritual business. Some
Yeah.
people take it and work with their families or communities, or some people still, like, keep their jobs, but they have a connection with their spiritual calling, whether that's connected to their career or not.
Okay.
And it's connected to mine, but not everybody's is.
So in essence, it's like a workshop, classes that you offer, a course.
Yeah, it's like a course, but it's a community. So we have group meetings on Zoom. So we have people all over the world. And what's beautiful about the BAVA Spiritual Mission is we have people from all walks of life,
Yes.
because it's that thread of faith that we can all connect with. I have, Christian people in there, pagan, witches, new age, the whole gambit of spiritual expression, because we're all connected on the truth. And whatever the packaging is, that's fine. Now, that being said, if somebody is really locked into their religion, and they're more locked into the religious doctrine than they are the faith, that thread of faith that runs through all spiritual tenets,
Yeah.
they're not going to be a good fit in Bava. But we welcome everybody. And so we have group lessons and we have a community aspect. So everybody is a community, and then we have mentorship as well. So this is a healing program. It's learning, but it's really becoming, or
Yeah.
even unbecoming, right?
Unbecoming.
Yeah, it's
Unbecoming. Absolutely.
unbecoming to really become who you are. And that's the impact that we have for people. So psychic development, sure. That's the door. Walk through this door and then
Yeah.
look at the magic that's on the other side. So,
I
it won't be for everybody, even everybody who wants to learn psychic development, because it requires a special level of commitment for
right.
people who are really ready to let go of their story
Mm-hmm.
and let go of all the reasons they've had, all the fears.
Excuses, right?
And it's a journey, and they are led through that journey with an ungodly amount of love, no judgment. We take you where you're at and gently guide you through it. But by the end of it, people are changed.
Yeah.
They are not afraid anymore. they they are sovereign. They trust themselves. It's pretty incredible. They're healing themselves. They're starting businesses. Like I said, they're doing amazing things.
I'd like some more information on that for me personally, for sure.
You bet. Happy
Yeah.
to. We are
Yeah.
taking applications right now and doing interviews.
Okay, great.
I can get you
Because
scheduled right after this
I'm
podcast.
I'm looking for a spiritual community that I can just continue to grow and evolve with,
Yeah.
and I'm really trying to find that tribe. And it looks like it's gonna have to be digitally because I don't leave my house much these days unless it's for
I
work.
know, right?
So
Well, I love it being digital because it's so fun to have people from like Canada and
all over the
Europe and
world, like you
you know
said.
all
Yeah.
of this, and I've had people say to me in the past, people said like, why don't we like get a plot of land and start a spiritual community? And
Yes.
Monica, I've been a part of spiritual communities. And you know what happens when you close off in a spiritual community? It becomes
Mm,
corrupt. I've never been a part of a spiritual community that hasn't closed ranks and then become corrupt. So what I
Yeah.
say, what
That's a
we
good
want to do
point.
in Bava is we want to come in for the juice, for the
Mm-hmm.
learning, bring it all in. And then we want to take that like seeding out into the world,
Yeah.
right? Go live your life, go talk to people, go share your gift. You don't even have to say anything about it to people, just being open and
Being open
grounded and
about your spiritual involvement. That's it. This is
yeah,
what we're
or
doing right
just
now, talking about our
sharing
experiences.
yeah, or just sharing love with somebody because you no longer have all the fear in the way that keeps you heart closed off and vulnerable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no like better or worse way to express your spiritual leadership or to bring it into the world.
Hmm.
It's like what everything is potent and impactful. And something spirit said to me is when we show up with one person fully in love, in pure love, that exchange ripples out to thousands of other people, just thousands. And it's how we're waking everybody's waking up
Well, it's
because they're
true.
having those little experiences of love. And then you and I are having this experience of love, and then we're going to go and talk to people and interact with people in our lives and bring that love out, and it's just going to ripple out
Yeah.
so fast.
I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, Larry, at I work in a radio station.
Oh,
That's
cool.
that's like my real job, right?
That's great.
Sales, not on
Oh,
air.
okay, not on
Yeah.
air still.
That's what pays the bills. Um, but I was having a conversation with my friend Larry, who's very religious, very spiritual man, very religious, African American. He's telling me about his mother during segregation in Mississippi,
Wow.
where she had a boss at the store that she worked at, like at the mall, and he was super racist, always talking down to her. She wanted to be a cosmetologist, and he was like, no, no, N is going to be working as a
Wow.
cosmetologist. You're here to serve, everybody
Yeah.
that walks in, not to do their hair. And long story short, the guy was horrible to her. Years later, she found out that he was dying of a terminal cancer. She went to his bedside at the hospital to
Wow.
visit him. And he said, "What are you doing here?" It was years later, and she said, "I'm just here to let you know that, I forgive you for everything, and I know that you're sick, and I just want to be here for you." And he just started crying, and he apologized, and it was just, I think that was so
Wow.
big of her, right? Like after so many years, somebody that mistreated you so much, and you're going to his bedside at his, at
Hmm.
the last stage of his life to let him know, "Hey, I forgive you for everything you did to me," because it was a programming within you that you had
Yeah.
also. That's what you were taught. You were taught to hate people that look like me,
Yeah.
So is it really your fault, right?
Yeah. I mean, what happens to us, our programming, not our fault. It
Mm-hmm.
is our responsibility to fix it,
Correct.
though.
Correct. Correct. We
Hmm.
all
And
have
not
the,
everybody is going to be willing to do that.
yeah.
And I am so fortunate to be surrounded by people who are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Every single person in my life is like, I'm here to do the work, to be
Mm-hmm.
a better human, to be more closer to divine spirit, living in partnership with spirit. And I'll talk to people like, people will find me and we'll have a conversation and they'll be like, I am so glad I met you. I can't talk to anybody about this stuff. And I'm like, gosh, that's all I talk about. So like,
Yeah.
this is like
Yeah.
everything. But it's good because it reminds me how fortunate I am.
Well, what do they say? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that
Yeah.
usually the case? That's very
And
true.
also when the student is ready, the teacher will disappear. One
True,
of
true.
my goal is always for my students
Let
to outgrow
go.
me as a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
very good teacher. I love teaching. I don't like people dependent on me. And that's part of, I think, what makes me a good teacher. But at the end of the day, I am looking for my students to rise up and be shoulder to shoulder with me.
Hmm.
One of my students, Linda, is co-teaching the BAVA Spiritual Mission with me because she has
Hmm.
shown up for years. And she's at a place where it's like, I'm not her teacher anymore. She's my peer. I don't like hierarchy. I think there's a place for it
Yeah.
initially, right?
Hmm.
But I expect people who I teach to rise to level up to where we are like
In
eye to eye.
sync.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean I was ever above them. It
Hmm.
meant that they had to believe in themselves to understand where they were. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And so speaking about that and energy, we all have this natural energy flow. So how do we know if if we're natural energy healers?
So okay, if you're very empathic, do you identify as an empathic person?
Too much.
Then you
It's
are an energy healer. The empaths are the healers of
it's
the
too
world.
much, too much. Like sometimes I'm just
Yeah.
like I can't deal with people. Like that's also something
Girl,
that's begun
same.
to happen. Like
That's why you don't leave, right?
I'll go because I leave when I have to, and my
Yeah.
girlfriends are like, "Girl, get out of your house, go ride horses," and I'm just like, and I do it, and I just like I can't deal with with just like the energy around me of people, you know?
Yeah.
It's too
So,
much.
and that's it. So you know you're very empathic when you're exhausted by crowds.
Mm,
When you feel other people's emotions like they're your own. So if
yes,
you're in a room with somebody and they start crying and they're upset, you're going to start crying and be upset.
yes, all the
Or
time.
conversely, sometimes like you can get angry because you
Mhm.
can't handle it. Like that's somebody who's not particularly like they're not
Grounded.
conscious of
Yeah.
yeah, like that can happen.
Hmm.
Um if you feel other people's like physical ailments. So my friend and I, we have this relationship energetically for whatever reason we like pass our physical ailments off to each other. Like I stayed at his house for an extended period of time one time, and I would just be like, "Gosh, my knee hurts." He goes, "Which one?" I'm like, "My right knee." He goes, "Sorry." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so we kept doing that, right? And like my knee was fine, but I was picking it up from him, right?
Right.
So that's an indication of a healer as well. Yeah, big open-hearted people. And healing energy is also channeling. So when you're a channel, when you can channel, you can also channel healing energy.
What are some of the signs that we can look into if we're being called to lead or do spiritual work for others? Like, what are some of the signs that we can look for?
Interest in it. If you're
That's
interested
it.
in it,
It's
right?
that.
Basically, that's it. Because
Yeah.
people who are not called to do spiritual work, they don't care.
Right.
I mean, I don't get it. Like for me personally, like a life without spirituality would be a dead life.
Hmm.
Like that would be so sad.
I, I
Like
I I
it is.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
You
it is my
know.
calling. But a lot of people live very happy lives without any particular spirituality, or they might go to church occasionally, but they don't really think about it, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a person who is on fire for their own spirituality, right, it's very important to you personally, and you have curiosity about it, you want to learn more from like mediums and teachers, and you're seeking and you're searching, that's an indication that you're here for spiritual leadership in some capacity. Now, it may not be Sadhguru or Jesus like visibility, but that doesn't mean it's not as impactful. It could be within, your family. You're here to
Right.
heal the
Yeah.
dynamics in the family, to be a
Your
spiritual leader in the family,
hmm
or for children, or
or
for,
your children.
you
Right.
know,
That's what I was gonna
or
say.
even just like random people on the street that you just meet. Like I've had some of the most incredibly powerful spiritual experiences where I showed up to the fullest in my capacity of a spiritual leader for complete strangers who I saw one time and never saw again. And
Yeah.
you could feel the impact of that, right?
Mhm.
And then, but it's, it could be a mix of anything. But, spiritual leadership is not about how many followers do I have? How many people are listening to my
Right.
sermon?
Right.
That's ego. And
Hmm.
not that ego doesn't have a place. I'm not saying ego is the bad guy, but it ain't spirit. It's like it's the human experience. And you get to enjoy things like a big follower count. I love it when I get a viral
Of
video. I'm like,
course.
yeah, that was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It makes you
Do
feel
I
good.
think do I think that that's what makes me a spiritual leader? No. What makes me a spiritual leader is the guy I met in Savannah who walked into the coffee shop looking like he'd been, traumatized, and
Yeah.
came up to me and asked for a cell phone charger. And I said, hang on, I got one in my Scion because I had everything in my Scion because it was tricked out as a micro camper. And I came in and handed him the charger, and there's tears streaming down his face. I go, do you need a hug? He goes, yeah. And I gave him a hug, and I heard his story. And he says, I don't know what to do. I'm diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. All I have is my medications. My mom's on drugs again. She was lying to me. She kicked me out of the house. I need my medication. I don't know what. And I said, ooh. And then we worked out where there's a shelter. And he goes, okay, got it. Yes, I'm going to go there. Okay, thank you. Good. Okay. I gave him a little bag for his meds. And then he went on his way, and I never saw him again. And that experience right there, it was one of those fated moments. It was like, oh, I was meant to come. We were meant to meet each other
Alignment.
to
It's
have a
alignment.
little,
Hmm.
yeah, have a little redirect. And
Yeah.
I am not a woman who's going to go up to a crying man and be like, do you
Right.
want a hug? Like,
Yeah.
why would I put myself in that position? Right. No, but this was
Right.
absolutely the right thing. Or the time when, my partner at the time, he said, let's go north and visit friend of mine. I said, okay. So we go north and we visit the friends, and it's a couple. It's a man and a woman. And the man I noticed was in the kitchen. He was kind of like not looking so good. You know, he kind of like was shaking a little bit. And at the time I thought maybe he has like a history of drug abuse, because my partner at the time had a checkered past. So I
Uh-huh.
was like, maybe he's got the same checkered past. He's just kind of, not doing so well. But I noticed it. And then when we went to bed that night, we were sleeping in bedroom, hallway, their bedroom. And I woke up in the middle. I actually woke up in the hallway because the wife was screaming. And I didn't actually become conscious till I was already in the hallway. I busted through that door. Her husband was having a seizure in the bed, and she had no idea what to do. She panicked, because that's sometimes how we respond when it's our loved ones,
Yeah,
right?
you freak out.
And my partner at the time is like, coming in after me, and all I heard in my head was turn him on his side. Again, it was that intuitive voice that was
Somebody.
just no big deal. Just turn him on his side. I said, okay. So I turned him on his side, and he's shaking, and I'm looking around, and she's losing it because she's really scared. And my partner is like, kind of like, I don't know what to do. So I went, okay, you call 911. You did,
You
and
were
I'm just
calling all the
holding,
shots at that
I'm
point.
just holding him, he's
Yeah.
shaking. And I'm like, is this all I was supposed to do? Was just hold him on his side. That was it. And then he ended up going to the hospital. It turned out he was an alcoholic, and God bless him. He tried to quit drinking cold turkey, and he threw him
Ah,
into a seizure. So they actually prescribed him beer at the hospital. But you know what he did? He got sober. He's been sober ever since.
good.
After that was done, I got that same feeling in my body where I was like, I looked at my partner, I said, time to go now. And he said, oh, okay. We left at like 5 o'clock in the morning, never saw them again. And it was just like, that was it. One of those fated moments, right?
Yeah, you were
So
there.
when you're
God.
in spiritual leadership, what you're doing is you have enough confidence and enough connection to listen to the directive from spirit, from the
So,
universe.
what are some beginner tips to give to somebody to start speaking to, let's say, their spirit guides, right? Or
Yeah.
guides, guide, whatever it may be, loved ones that have passed and transitioned, what are some beginner tips that we can start implementing on our daily basis so that we can, learn to communicate, where we're hearing them?
Yeah. The number one thing to implement is a meditation practice as early in the day as you can. And I feel like nobody likes to hear that.
Oh,
Because it's like, that's pretty boring.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an hour, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It just needs to be 5 minutes of breathing and showing up for spirit. You're showing up and saying, I'm here. You're showing up and you're saying, I'm here. Now, I have a psychic development starter bundle. It's actually in my TikTok store, and I will send you the link if you want to include it with
Yeah.
this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's $8, and it's 3 mini courses, and it's
Yeah.
a psychic development starter bundle. So in there, I get people started
I
on
saw
energy
it.
clearing.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Energy, and then also psychic abilities, mediumship, and channeling. And then there's a meditation in there to help people learn how to connect with their spirit guides. But then I also have a course on surrender, which we talked about earlier, because that is so powerful. And a course on radical receiving, which is like a manifesting course. So it's a good sort of smattering of what I teach.
Yeah,
But essentially,
send me those links, and I'll go ahead and I'll add it
I
at the very
will.
end. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's but if you don't want to do that, then meditation, and I have a free grounding meditation I can send you as well. But
Mhm.
if you start meditating, your intuition will start to improve.
Mhm.
You will start to hear spirit more. And then, just trust the nudges,
Yeah.
even if it seems really dumb.
That
If
for
it
me,
doesn't make any sense, just
that for
like,
me
why
was
not?
a game changer, because
Yeah.
I can't hear them, or at least I don't think I can, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the feeling. That's
Yeah.
that's what I sense as I'm
Yeah.
allowing myself to open up more and more spiritually, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when I ask for it,
Yeah.
please, spirit guides,
Yeah.
my dad, God,
Yeah.
I want
They will
this.
show up.
I want this. Like, make this happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
It may not happen right away, but I always get it.
Always.
I always
I
get
have
it.
never not had a prayer answered.
Yes, it's
Never.
amazing. It's
Yes, it is
amazing.
amazing. So
Yeah.
setting your intention and asking, like, show me. Also look for things in your physical environment too. Look for repeating numbers. Look for messages. And
All the
you'll
time.
know it's a
Hmm.
message for you because you'll feel it. You'll have a
Yeah.
physical response. Oh, there it is, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else.
Right.
You got to feel it in your body. Now, looking for it and like, is that a message from the head? Is not what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
noticing it and going, ooh, like you got that 444 earlier on your phone, like, ooh,
Hmm.
there it is, you know?
Yeah. As I was talking about something so personal, it couldn't
Yes.
it couldn't have happened at a better time.
Correct.
Um, this is all great stuff. I love it. Thank you so much again, Ingrid,
Yeah,
for
my
for
pleasure.
sharing
Thank
all this
you.
with me. You
Thank you
wanna
so much.
why don't we end this where you tell us a little bit about your book? You wrote Locked in Love, a book
I
of channeled
did.
spirit messages.
Yeah.
What
I've written,
inspired you for that project?
I was channeling all the time. I was talking to my guide and posting these little snippets on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then I was just doing it. And then one of my students actually said, you should turn that into a book. I'm like, sure, I don't really feel like doing that. She goes, I'll do it for you. And I was like, oh, okay. So all I had to do was go get them, right, and compile them. And then she was so great. She just like put the book together for me. And then we put it out there. And it's so powerful and it's so impactful. And it's not like it's one of those use it like a divination tool. You open it up and you see what the message is for the day.
Yeah.
And these are just little snippets that I've channeled over the years from my spirit guide Mons. And then I also have several poetry books published too, which you can get some another flavor of my channeling through poetry.
Yes, I saw that
Those
you
are all on my
also work,
website.
you collaborate with musicians also, where the
Yes.
channeled poetry that you have it's been extended into music
Oh,
pieces.
that
How
has been
cool,
so fun.
how
Such
cool
fun
is that?
project. So
Yes.
cool. It's so cool.
Very, very, very,
Yeah.
very cool. Ingrid, what is a powerful message that you can share with our listeners that Spirit is communicating to you right now that we should all know?
Here's something that's been coming through very strongly for the last couple of days. Fear is not a warning. Fear is an initiation. When you are moving on your path and you feel that fear come up, when you feel really afraid, it is not a warning for you to back down and contract. It is an initiation in your body. It is your body going through a portal. And if you can take away the story that scares you, what you're left with is the physical sensation in your body. And that can have an entirely different meaning.
Yes.
And if you look at it as an initiation, if you take away the fear story, the story, could it be excitement?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be passion? Right? So 99% of the things that we're afraid of, it's not about actually being in danger. It's an initiation into a higher frequency because we're on the path. And our ego comes in to
Right.
clobber us with our
Mm-hmm.
insecurities.
Right.
But if you can just stay so present and expand through that fear, you're unlocking the next level. Most people contract back into an old energy because they see the fear as a warning bell.
No, and it's also like a comfort mechanism that we have, right? We're afraid of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's on the other side? Well, it could be amazing, but what if? What if I
Mm-hmm.
fail, right? What if I get
But
knocked on my ass?
that what if story, the what if it could go wrong,
Yeah.
that's just your ego coming in and saying, "Can we just keep you more manageable, please?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how to keep you safe if you're that level at that new energy.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
Right.
So let me just insert some fear. But what's really going on, your spirit is calling you to the other side. And if you can disconnect the story and get physically in the body, you can use it to break through
Mhm.
that
Makes sense.
sensation of fear, you can use it to break through.
Yeah. Yeah. How can anybody that's listening that is really resonating with your energy and the messages that you're putting out there and they want to reach out to read a little bit more about your courses and what you have available with your workshops, how can they get a hold of you?
Go to my website, ingridhturner.com. You can
Mm-hmm.
contact me there. And I'm on all the socials. And so Ingrid H. Turner everywhere on the internet. And don't forget the middle initial. I am
Yeah.
competing for web space with a senator in Maryland, I think, who's also
Oh,
named Ingrid Turner. So keep the H.
the H is very important.
H is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
and so come find me, follow me, friend me. I love building community. It's my jam.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, listen, you really do have great energy. I've really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
speaking with you, and
Me
we're
too.
going to continue this conversation.
Sounds
Definitely.
amazing.
Yeah.
Let's
You
keep it
want
going.
you want to let everybody know about the conference that you have coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to Knoxville, Tennessee to speak at a Women in Excellence conference in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's put on by the amazing Amy Woods. And the website is, oh my gosh, it's a long website, womeninexcellence.conference.com. But I'm going to send you the link just to make sure I
Mm-hmm.
have that right.
Okay.
So you can put it below in case I got that wrong. But it's really about It's women's empowerment. She started a nonprofit organization to really inspire, to help for women to help other women, especially women in difficult situations
Yeah.
like domestic violence situations, poverty, that kind of thing, to sort of mentor and empower women to come up through that. And I feel very honored to be able to speak. And I'm on the stage with a bunch of incredible powerhouses. Um, it it's humbling and
Yeah,
and
sure.
it's so gratifying. Yeah, so thank
Well,
you.
that's a great mission to definitely be a part of,
Yeah.
right? Like,
I am into that. Yeah. It's something that we're looking at through BAVA is how to do more of that through that
great
kind of thing
idea.
as well through BAVA. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah,
inspired by her.
that is a great idea. Um, okay, Ingrid, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. We've covered so much already in this episode. It's been amazing. I'll be posting it this evening. So what I do is, as soon as you finish sending me all the links, once I post it on YouTube, the entire episode in the comment section, I'll add out your website, your contact information, all of your social media links, and send me the information on the conference as well, and we'll put it all in there for
Awesome.
anybody that's interested so that it's easier for them to be able to communicate with you.
Will
But
do.
again, thank you so much, Ingrid. I appreciate this so much. This was so great. And
Thanks.
to
Me
anybody,
too.
yeah, to anybody that's watching, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your support. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel so that we can continue to grow this amazing spiritual community that's exploding lately. This is so awesome. And hitting that notification bell so that you never miss an episode with these amazing guests that are coming on the show more and more. So thanks again for watching. And Ingrid, thanks again. I wish you a great long, what is it, Memorial Weekend, right? It's Memorial
Uh
Weekend coming up.
yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be working, but I want
Yeah.
to, so that's fine.
I'm headed to Miami tomorrow to visit my mother. So
Nice.
yeah. It'll be a nice little road trip that I get. I get a lot of thinking when I'm on
Oh
the road.
yeah.
So yeah, it's I kind of like detach a lot when I'm driving. I like unless I'm in bumper to bumper traffic. That's never fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, thanks again, Ingrid. Okay. I hope you
Thank
have
you,
a great
Monica.
weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, honey.
Bye.